The VR games we're getting today are great and all, but what if we take a look back at when VR was first starting to gain traction? We had Facebook buying Oculus, rip Oculus, HTC creating their first headset in partnership with Valve, and a lot of companies hopping on the bandwagon of VR thinking they're gonna make an insane profit just to be burnt when they found out that there just wasn't enough people in the VR space yet. But that left us with a lot of early cool games that were built from the ground up specifically for VR. And sadly, because of their time of being released, a lot of people missed out on these gems. Welcome in, you nerds, I'm Z-Storm, and today I'm gonna take you on a little journey down VR memory lane to show you just how cool these old VR games were. Just like today's sponsor, VR Wave can show you how cool and clear VR is supposed to look without glasses. VR Wave offers some tailor-made prescription lenses for a wide range of different VR headsets such as the Oculus Quest, Valve Index, Reverb G2, and many more. No longer do you have to worry about sliding in your glasses into the headset and scratching up your lenses. You can head on over to VR Wave-store and customize a pair to suit your prescription needs, and even add an optional blue light filter to help block out any added stress onto your eyes. All the links and information for that are in the description down below. Alright, let's go ahead and take a look at these 10 VR games that you have never heard of. Starting off this list is going to be Robinson: The Journey, a game running on the same engine as Crysis 3, so you already know it's gonna look wild. In this beautiful world, you take on the role of Robin, a survivor stranded on planet Tyson 3 when a ship, the Esmeralda, crashes. He must now rely on his wits, a little AI robot named Higgs, and soon after landing, his brand new dinosaur friend. He was promised that Tyson 3 would be a striving and thriving paradise, suited for a whole new string of life to be born and start a civilization. Sadly, you'll soon come to find out this is very much so not the case. I don't want to spoil anything for you before you get a chance to play it, but I will leave it saying this game is frequently on sale on Steam for $5, and you get around roughly 5 hours of game time out of it, with a bunch of different puzzles, a gravity gun, climbing, dinosaurs, fully voiced storyline pods you'll find, and more. I still couldn't get over the visual fidelity that this game has. Hopping back into it here in 2022, it is still in my top 5 VR games as graphics go. Some people may say this is more of like a VR experience than a game, but I beg to differ as I struggled with a bunch of the puzzles and had to genuinely think to be able to proceed forward. Up next is a game I feel should have been re-released for the Quest by now, but sadly it hasn't, and that game is Sprint Vector. It's a multiplayer skating and power-up racing game as if Jet Set Radio and Mario Kart mashed up together for an epic VR game. Currently, the only game out on Quest that has something that feels remotely similar is Rec Room's Stunt Runner, but obviously that doesn't even come close to the fun that this game had brought me. To move around the map, you had to swing your arms back and forth to feel like you were skating across the ground. You had to master moving your arms and pressing the right buttons when turning to be able to slide and drift. When hitting jumps, if you did so just right, you could glide with a boost over a long distance. This game had 21 different courses to race on, with up to 8-player multiplayer lobbies. There were 3 different game modes: Hardcore, Collection, and Time Trial. From the aesthetics all the way to the gameplay mechanics, the game was a golden level gem that was just released a few years too early. This is something I feel could approach up on the Gorilla Tag level if they made it free to play with cosmetics on the Quest, but then again, maybe this is just my nostalgic brain running rampant and this game wasn't all that. This game runs for $30 still on Steam and Oculus, but frequently goes on sale for $5, but sadly if you get it, you'll most likely just be playing single player mode as the online is pretty dead. I would love to organize a giant Sprint Vector PvP race at some point in the near future, so feel free to practice up and let me know in the comments down below if you'd be interested in that. Blasting up next from the people who brought you all of the Metro games, we have Arctica 1. You take on the role of a Citadel security employee in the year 2120 after the apocalypse, as the planet has entered a new ice age. You were hired as a mercenary to protect one of the last colonies in the wasteland of Old Russia from violent raiders, marauders, and horrifying creatures. You have a guide, Victoria, that helps be a little voice in your head and tell you the different things you can do and briefs you in between the missions. Each gun has a unique feel, look, and attributes to it, some of which I would love to see implemented into modern day VR games. Arctica did have a locked teleport-only locomotion system. What that means is in some games you could use a teleport locomotion to travel up to walls and boundaries without it feeling restricted, but Arctica made you stay on a specific path and teleport from node to node. The way the guns look, feel, and sound are alone enough reason for this game to be on this list. At its core, it's a puzzle wave shooter that spans about 6 to 7 hours of playtime, unfortunately without really engrossing you too much into the storyline. I love the idea of it, I love the mechanics, and adored the visuals, and if you can get it on sale for where it isn't $30, I would say it's definitely worth picking up. I really hope that 4A Games takes from this experience back in 2017 and slaps us with something spectacular in the upcoming years, like actual Metro VR. From the folks who made Cult of the Lamb, Serious Sam, and the original flat-screen Talos Principle, a perfect execution of VR porting was born. Talos Principle VR is a first-person puzzle game of philosophical science fiction. You awake from a deep sleep and find yourself in a strange, contradictory world of ancient ruins and advanced technology. You were tasked by your creator with solving a series of increasingly complex puzzles, but you must decide whether to have faith or to ask the difficult questions. Who are you? What is your purpose? And what are you going to do about it? Set out into the world in your own way, with the game having a non-linear path. It had support for all different types of locomotion despite being from 2017, which was another impressive feature that at the time was ignored by many other developers. This is still tied for my favorite VR puzzle game to this day, mixed in with Myst being the other contender. Go ahead and explore a story about humanity, technology, and civilization. Uncover all the clues, create new theories, and make up your own mind. If you have PC VR, that is. You may have heard of the Killing Floor series of games on the flat screen side of things, but most people don't know that Tripwire Interactive had also made a VR version of Killing Floor. I played through this game in single player and I had a lot of fun. Being able to slice off limbs off the enemy and then beat them senseless was a joy I didn't know I needed to feel. And yeah, I know you can do something like this in Blade and Sorcery as well, but it was cool to feel it in something outside of Blade and Sorcery. You could also fight some Attack on Titan looking dude and cut their arms off and then grab the arms and dual wield them as actual swords. There were a few fun puzzles throughout the game, though the story mode was pretty short, unfortunately. Visually, the game was pretty okay, but it's definitely more than I would have expected from something made back in 2017. Being able to switch the knife over into a throwable mode was a cool little added touch that I haven't seen with melee weapons in a VR game before, but I could be missing that. And I hopped into a multiplayer lobby with my buddy SoulBC the other day to see how it works as of October of 2022, and it worked pretty good. Look at, dude, I feel like I'm in CSGO. Look at CSGO. I'm doing knife flips, dude. I can't believe we're playing Killing Floor in 2022. Whoa, hey there, big chainsaw feller. How's it?
I know, I remember that one. That one's a Scrake.
Oh, hell yeah.
Quad.
Oh, wait. Oh, I'm just kidding.
Scrake is dead.
Granted, it became really repetitive, we had a lot of fun, and it showed us the potential of what an actual Killing Floor 1 or 2 would have in VR. Locking and loading its way onto the next spot is none other than the CV1 Rift launch title, Robo Recall, which was made by the same super company that brought you Fortnite, Epic Games. Robo Recall was my first VR motion-controlled game that I ever spent any significant amount of time in. It resulted in me getting too immersed and punching a hole in the ceiling, which I deem that to be enough of a oh hell yeah moment to go out and purchase my own CV1 Rift. Robo Recall was a first-person shooter where you're a police robot unit trying to stop all of the rogue robots that got infected with a virus from taking over the city. It was also the first game I ever played that let me fully dismember a body. Now, I know that sounds a little psychopathic, but then again, Blade and Sorcery exists, so I would say this is on the mild end of things. You could block bullets with your guns and grab the bullets in slow-mo time and throw them back at the enemy. In some levels, you had to take the robots and knock them into a giant twister to stop it from ripping apart the city, which was a blast when you were smacking them with other robots. You had your typical gun customization, and you also had, which I'm actually just finding out about now, a full Robo Recall modding kit, so learning new things as I'm making this video. Sadly, the link to the modding kit and the mods forums themselves seem to not be working directly from the Epic website, but after some further digging, I found a website showing off some of the mods and how to download and install them. I'm not sure how many of them are still being worked on, or if at all, but there was at one point a really cool Star Wars mod being worked on, as well as a smooth locomotion mod that had removed the need to teleport from place to place. All in all, it was a visually beautiful game, made you move around, and it had some really fun gameplay mechanics with throwing your guns at enemies to bounce them off, shoot another enemy, and then grab that robot and yeet it into a flying drone. I may get some flack for including this game as it's actually a really new game, but Larcenauts had such a poor launch that this 6v6 multiplayer hero shooter died off in a snap. On launch week, myself and many others hopped into Larcenauts, which is basically Overwatch in VR, and it had all sorts of issues, like not supporting Steam VR at first even though it was sold on Steam, forced running animations, and forced weird automatic reload animations. These weren't personally a big deal breaker for myself, but this combined with the fact that the company never had any big alphas or betas to test the game and didn't listen to the community right away was a big issue. But since then, a large majority of this has changed, and it appears that they have listened to a lot of feedback, but unfortunately it's a little too late. There's now optional manual reload for all weapons, there's new classes, new maps, the locomotion modes are all fixed up, and this game is all primed and ready to be one of the best multiplayer VR experiences. The only problem is it needs players to be a multiplayer game. Luckily, there are bots that populate the lobby so you can still buy it and play online and have an experience, just not against many other real players. You had 9 classes you could choose between, all with subsets of different weapons and abilities that you could unlock. Also, depending on how you played and the role of the daily shop, you could earn coins to unlock new skins for the different characters, with legendary skins being some cool additional cosmetics on the character. There were 5 or 6 maps to play on, a payload game mode, as well as the normal 6v6 team deathmatch modes. I feel Impulse Gear could definitely spend some money on advertising, get some big giant update prepped, and bring a revival back to the game. And if you're listening, Impulse, the best way to do that would be launching Larcenauts as a PSVR 2 launch title. It would bring the servers back to life and people from the Quest and PC could hop back in, and this game could be booming again. To the Top is an OG classic climbing platformer. During a time when a lot of new VR games had to lock you to a linear playstyle and true freedom to move around was frowned upon, To the Top was created, and it gave you the freedom to grab, climb, and fling yourself all around through 35 different levels. And the best part of all this was at the time was you could play through it in multiplayer with your friends. It may not seem like anything completely revolutionary or game-changing for VR right now, but it was one of those games I used to say you had to experience it yourself to understand what it was all about. And Electric Cat Games had a second version of To the Top coming out called Super Kit, which appears to have halted development at the moment. I'm not exactly sure why, but it looked amazing, so I hope at some point they decide to continue on with it and release it fully to the public. Lone Echo. You know that game Echo Arena that everyone plays that's like Zero Gravity Ultimate Frisbee? This is the original single player story game that game was based off of. You take on the role of an Echo 1 service android named Jack aboard the Kronos 2 mining station orbiting Saturn. Jack serves under the command of human crew member Captain Olivia Rhodes, who is to be reassigned by her employer, the Atlas Initiative, which would leave Jack behind as the only crew member of that facility. But then a mysterious spatial anomaly knocks out some of the station's vitals, and Jack and Olivia must work together to repair the damage and investigate the anomaly. I don't want to dig into the story much at all because it is such an amazing game that you really need to play it for yourself. My first playthrough took around 15 to 20 hours, and that was with flying around to try and find the little floating data cubes to get some achievements. Lone Echo was one of those few VR games that has been able to grab my emotions and twist them in all sorts of directions, all during an incredible story and virtual reality experience. There is also a Lone Echo 2 that just released last year, so if you complete the first one, you can look forward to the continuation. Probably one of my favorite VR games in existence is one that still so many have never heard of, and that gem of a game is Stormland. This was created by Insomniac Games, the people who brought us freaking Ratchet and Clank. Yeah, you know, the huge staple in the gaming industry, PS2, PS3. You take on the role of an android gardener Vesper and fight back against the enemy Tempest. You do this by building up your body via finding new parts and upgrading all your electronics with this different plant energy that you find. You have a huge open world that you can explore, find various plants and metals to collect to use to upgrade. You get a visor to use to scan new plants, animals, and resources, which help you fill up your Pokédex-like index. You can glide, fly, jump, and climb through anything that you want. Might I add that this game had a climbing system that feels very similar to Population 1's climbing system before Population 1 had it. And damn, did it feel amazing. Oh, And to travel between each little landform, you have to skate across the clouds, which is done using a slipstream thruster, which gave me a lot of Sprint Vector and Jet Set Radio vibes. They also made it a point so the only way that you can turn while moving at those high speeds was to move with your physical arms and not the joysticks, because it makes for a smoother, less motion sickness inducing experience. Guns that you could find in this game included a SMG, a shotgun, a minigun, a rifle, and a beastie sniper rifle with a unique scope design that I still have not seen in any other game, VR or flat. And once you were done using those guns, they ran out of ammo and you didn't replenish the ammo, you actually cracked the guns in half and built new guns or found new guns. There is a fully voice-acted storyline through the campaign, of which you can also complete solo or in 2-player co-op. And when you eventually do finish the storyline, the game enters a mode called the Cycling World, where the game's locations and missions were reset every week and new ones created via procedural generation. All in all, it was a very Breath of the Wild mixed with Ratchet & Clank VR game that I adored every second of. The locomotion, the atmosphere, the guns, the enemies, the story, I was all absolutely for it. And I hope that Insomniac can take up another project like this in the future and maybe bring it to standalone platforms as well to help it gain some traction. If you haven't given this game a shot yet and you have PC VR, I highly suggest it. All of these games were great in their own way, and I felt that they deserve some more recognition, as many folks nowadays are only looking at the current top trending games wanting more and more, when we have a bunch of hidden gems sitting here sparkling in a corner, just waiting for a few stray users to pick them up and experience some of the best VR games of their lifetime. What did you think of this list? What games did I miss that you think I should add to my next list of games? Let me know in the comments down below. Oh, if you made it this far, also add an eggplant into your comments down below. As always, thanks for watching, and remember, never give up. Peace on out.